Hello,
Hey,
everyone. I'm Jujana.
and I'm Connor, and thank you for joining us today. Free versus paid. This is a huge thing right now, and it seems like everybody is trending towards the paid side. Everybody's pushing really hard, and they're saying all your stuff needs to be paid, and don't even bother wasting your time on freebie seekers. So we just kind of want to go back and forth and share our thoughts and ideas. So, Juji, do you want to jump in? And first off, where do you stand?
Let me be completely authentic. It did resonate with me after I could not really monetize what I was doing at the beginning, stumbling through that evolution of becoming an entrepreneur. It resonated with me when people said, like, stop attracting the freebie seekers because who wants that, right? So it sounded really good to me at the beginning. And then I started to observe my own behavior. And let's be honest, a lot of time I start out as a freebie seeker when I meet someone new and I download their free stuff. And that's how I become their customer. So now I think the picture is a little bit more shaded and a lot more complex than what we hear from some mainstream creators. What do you think, Connor?
I think categorizing people as freebie seekers, it's almost like we're devaluing them and we're saying like, oh, they would never have any interest in paying for anything or buying anything. But in truth, like if you go to Costco or you go to the grocery store and they have some free samples out, do you look at them and go, I'm not a freebie seeker. I wouldn't eat that sample. Or do you just take the sample and try it? And if you like it, you buy the food. So to me, it's like, yes, maybe it converts less. If you're giving something away for free, people are paying less attention, right? They generally, but some people are still paying a lot of attention. And let's be honest, it's so much easier to give stuff away for free. And you can get
Yeah.
your messaging dialed and you don't have to spend as much money to land a free lead.
Yeah, that is true. And I think there is also a tendency, which is kind of covered, but what I see that a lot of people use the excuse when they put out a crappy piece of free content that that is not working because it's free. But hang on for a second. That's not necessarily true. Like diagnosing why something doesn't work, that's one thing that I have been always obsessed with. And this is what I do for courses, right? Like I go in and I look at your course and I will figure out with you what doesn't work for you. But then what I see that a lot of people just would go and blame the freebie seekers or the audience for not really converting through a free tool. And then I look at the free tool and I'm like, no wonder, dude. That is a disappointing tool because you mix up free with cheap or free with cheap in terms of quality, or that you can put anything out there, it's free. That's not how this works anymore, not in this super noisy space, at least. What do you think?
I agree. Yeah, it's one of those things where if you are like, I'm giving away free junk, it's like
Yeah.
people see it, think of it like a garage sale. If people put junk out and they mark free on it and it's actually junk, you're not even going to take it. So why would they then think that they could sell you something because you took some junk? And
Right.
I just think that freebie seekers, like there's no need for this bad name for freebie seekers. And getting paid clients up front, like a low ticket offer, an SLO type of thing, it's hard to set up in the first place. It's expensive to set up if you are running it through ads. If you're doing it through partnerships and promotions through friends, that sort of thing in your own network, it makes a lot of sense. So a lot of the paid courses that I see, they already have a great following. And then they run a mini workshop or whatever it is to their paid group and people buy it like crazy. And then they talk about how great it works because then those people upgrade. But those people were already in their paid group, or they were already in their group, their community, and they've been around them for a long time. They're familiar with them. So there's a nurturing cycle. And whether they're free or paid, they need to be nurtured. So I see course creators building a paid workshop or something like that. And then they'd go to sell their back end offer, their high ticket offer, and they don't sell any of it. And maybe there's a misalignment there. There could be a million reasons why it's not working. And it wouldn't have worked if it was free, and it doesn't work if it's paid. So sometimes I think starting out any way you can as cheaply as you can to learn your market, learn your people, then you can scale into the paid stuff. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And another tendency I see that because there is this, I wanted to mention two things now listening to you. One of the things that I observe is that people who have enough of not being able to make anything with their freebie, whatever the quality is, I don't want to judge anyone here. Then they decide that they just put a price tag on it, because if people pay, they pay more attention, or they repeat one of these blanket statements that are flying around on social media. And then that doesn't work either. So that's not gonna make your free stuff better just because you put a price tag on it. That's one thing I wanted to clarify here. The other thing that I see is those who are the biggest advocates of only paid, no free, they all have a huge pool of amazing free content out there. Okay. So somebody who has hundreds of amazingly valuable podcast episodes saying don't give anything away for free, to me, that's almost ironic, or interesting at least to see that, because it's very different if you have all that built up already and then you go for paid only than when you're just starting out, as you said, and you try to test the waters and try to figure out what works and what doesn't, right?
Yeah, and no, I think it's important to take the other point of view as well. So freebie, building your list up, that's all great, but the conversion rate, it's proven, it's much, much lower generally.
Yeah.
It's lower, but it also costs a lot less. And I like to refer to those as vanity metrics, where you're just feeling really good about these numbers that are coming in, but it doesn't really matter because only 1 in every 100 is actually buying anything from you. So that part's kind of it's misleading because you start feeling better and it's not actually happening. And I do think you could start out paid, but you have to already know some people or have a way to get introduced to those people, whether it's getting in front of your target audience through someone else's Facebook group. But it's like you were saying, there are so many people out there that are like, paid is the only way, the only possible way to make this happen. And I see that in a lot of the courses I take too. It's like the one best and only way to make something happen. And there's not just one best and only way. This is just the way that people are selling and the way they're pushing right now. And it's working, so more people are jumping into it. And it's harder to sell something than it is to give something away every time. Yeah. But if you can get a buyer, then they are more likely to buy your next offer, assuming it's aligned, assuming you have a great sales page. But this also assumes that you kind of have a sales funnel in place, like you know what you're doing. Giving away stuff for free can be a very simple lead magnet. It could be a post on Facebook to friends like, hey, I put together this guide, anyone interested? This could just be to your personal network. That's so simple, and people will be interested, and you can nurture them from there.
Either way, what's really interesting that is like not that often talked about, and you and I both experienced it on our journey, I believe, that you create whatever front end offer you have, free or paid. Let's forget that quality for a second. But then you get some people in, and you have to guide them along that journey. What do you do with all those people? That is so funny how this conversion hype is huge lately. Like, convert better, convert more people. But then the whole nurture, what you call a funnel, or there are so many names for it. Like, how do you guide them through your entire, galaxy? Like, what's next? What do you do with them next? I think that deciding factor is at least as important. That's where my mind went listening to you.
Yeah, and you have to convert people, right? Like, that is part of the equation. You have to convert them, but even a low conversion rate on a free offer that doesn't cost much might be amazing.
Yes.
And it's, I heard on a podcast the other day, but they were talking about launching as just the start. Mm-hmm. And I think so many of us look at it as the launch is the end all. I got to have this massive launch and make $150,000 on this launch, or like, that's it. And it's like, well, no, the launch is not the end all. And you're setting yourself up for failure if you're putting these massive expectations on a first launch or a second or a third launch when you're still new to this. You want to try it, hope you get some people in. If you get people in, nurture them like crazy, give them what you promised, over deliver, then try and get them into the next stage. And like
Yes.
it's the buyer's journey. You need to be present for the buyer's journey, and you need to remember you're doing this not just to make sales, you're doing this to create something to help people in some way. And I think we get so caught up in numbers. And the funny
Yes.
thing about like the paid workshop is I tried working on an SLO for a while and spent a lot of money on ads. And I got it down to where it was like $200 a sale, but I was making $27 for that for that
Do
sale,
you
right?
want
And
to introduce the whole idea of SLO to those people who may not know that expression?
yes, so an SLO is self-liquidating offer. So it's where you have essentially an offer that you're putting out there. So it's $27, and I'm hoping that I spend $27 or less to acquire that customer. So I break even or make a profit. Now, I was spending $27 or I was being paid $27, making $27, and I was spending about 200. So I was actually losing 100 and what, $73 per person. That's not good numbers. And then everybody says you can make it up on the back end, but the funny part is at that time I didn't really have a back end. I was like, I'm going to
That's
get this
it.
machine working. And people were buying my SLO, right? But then no one was logging in. So there was a misalignment there. There was something I wasn't following up right. There was an issue. And it's like, well, so I have 16 sales and nobody's even accessed the material. What did I create? And what's the purpose of this? I might as well have just given it away for free, saved a whole lot of money on ads in this case. Or if I already had an audience, I could have run it as paid. But you need a follow-up offer to make that work too. And generally with anything paid up front, you need a back end, which means you're building two things instead of just one.
All the time. And these are, but I think whatever the lesson that you learn and we all learn throughout this, our own journey, it's invaluable. And this is also like to, as you said, let's be fair and see the benefits of the paid acquired customer side too, not just, seeing how that doesn't work. It does work. The fact is, though, at the same time, is if you have a paying customer, they will have very different expectations on their own customer journey with you, and they will probably want more. Hopefully they want more of you, but if they don't, then what happened to you is that there was that misalignment. That's perfect tool of diagnosis that something didn't click there. And what didn't click? By the way, before you feel really bad, the latest statistics show that about 3% of the free courses and 5 to 10% of the paid courses that are created are actually consumed. And that is a really scary number.
That's horrible.
I know. Some stats are a little bit more optimistic than this, depending on what scale they measure, and what representative samples they use and where do they take it from. But in this incredibly big industry, that is still an alarming number. And what's really interesting, how to use that number to create something else, to be that 5%, or become someone who creates a course that people actually want to consume and want to finish and complete. That is a very good quest. Free or paid, who cares at the beginning? When you set your intention, I do believe that the monetary side should not be the very first thing that we wanted to focus on. And this is what you were commenting on, Connor. Like, you actually want to help people, right? Like, if you're doing it only for the money, you're probably not in the right industry.
Yes, we're in it for like the long game. You should be here for the long game. You shouldn't be doing this for a get rich quick scheme or a super quick win. And it's hard because the way almost everybody sells their courses, they show their results of the outliers that went through their course. And they say this person made 100,000 their first launch. This person on their third launch was at 2 million. And you're like, whoa, they only did this for 6 months and they made $2 million. And it's like, well, their backstory, we don't know their backstory. They might have taken courses with 15 other people. They might have been testing stuff out and then they just finally hit it. So it's like that, I think it's a metaphor analogy. I always mix those up. But when you talk about like an iceberg and all of the work was the bottom of the iceberg that you can't see. And then the very top of it is that little bit of success. And that's all everybody else sees. And they go, whoa, overnight success. Like, there it is. But
Sure.
really, there's this giant backstory that you can't see below the surface.
Yeah, there is a saying that there is 10,000 working hours behind every overnight success. We are big time course consumers and creators, right? So of course I watch out for these tendencies. And one thing that I noticed that when they bring in those success stories, the creators, the organizers, none of those people actually started 6 months before. They had a business for 6 years and then they had a breakthrough. They had a brick and mortar and then they converted it to online, to the online space. Obviously, what they emphasize in the story is what they want you to see, right? So it's always good to kind of listen in and hear those parts or hear the unheard parts of like, hey, this guy started out 10 years ago and now he reached that level of success, right?
Yeah, and I also think the other important part is the key to it all is the community that they had. That's the part you don't see and you don't realize. And almost everybody that I see as a breakthrough story in the courses I'm in, I like to reach out to them. I've been doing this for years and I like to reach out and say, what's your story? How did this actually happen? Like, let's learn a little bit more. And 9 times out of 10, they had a strong community that they were nurturing for free. And it was just something they did as a passion project, or maybe it was something, maybe they were hoping to monetize it one day, but they'd been running it for years and they'd created good engagement, good rapport, and then they released an offer. And this is true of big brands, clothing companies, anything like that. And I ran a t-shirt company for about 5 years, and I noticed all these other t-shirt companies that were just communities, and then they started selling t-shirts and they were able to generate a ton of sales right away. Whereas I was building the brand and then trying to get people to buy it. When you build the community and then you create the product for the community, that's a clear fit. It works then.
An
And it's
easier
something,
fit. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. And I think this kind of like goes back just to go full circle, and maybe we should wrap it up because we wanted to keep this short today. We kind of like riffing on a different subject. I wanted to bring it back to the free to paid content. One counter example from James Wetmore, because he also mentions this a lot, that there was an influencer with like 200 million followers and he couldn't sell 5 t-shirts to them. Like, monetizing your community is a whole new animal as well, right? So I think there is this kind of like conclusion that yes, you need some sort of community presence. It's easier to sell when you have that community, but then again, the quality of that community also matters, because it cannot just be vanity metrics of those followers who then would not even understand why you try to sell them anything, right?
That's a great point. Quality over quantity.
Yes.
And that's where the paid side wins. Quality, because these people are paying, they're more likely to pay attention, they're more likely to show up, they're more likely to engage, invest their time in it, they care to be there, because we all probably have I'm assuming almost everybody does. So I know you might not want to group yourself in as a freebie seeker, but you probably have a folder on your computer right now that's filled with free lead magnets that you've never opened.
Yes,
That you
absolutely
downloaded,
true.
save for later.
Can I be very radical here? Lately, what I realized that I will open the ones that are actually good enough to be open. And that might ruffle some feathers here, because I also binge read some of the free stuff and binge watch some of the free stuff because it's what I exactly need. And that's not the differentiator, is not how much I pay for it necessarily, how much I consume of it, right? Because I bought courses for, whatever, 4 figures, and then I did not even touch it. And then I just downloaded something for free and I read it twice already, and I'm planning to print it out and highlight it. So that is so interesting how that either resonates or sits well or not. And I'm more likely to buy from the person whose lead magnet was that mesmerizing to me than whoever I bought stuff from and I never used it, right? So that's a really, really interesting testing ground for everybody. And that's what I want to encourage people who are watching this to go out there and start testing. it's not failure if you try to put something out there for money and people are not buying it, because there are so many elements that we don't know, so many factors that need diagnosis to see which touch points didn't touch. Was it the marketing? Was it this, the sales page? Was it your the way, the words, the copy that you used? Is it the actual lead magnet that people not really wanted? Is it that you were trying to sell it to the, or give it to the wrong audience? Like, to me, these are all opportunities, like exciting opportunities to see what doesn't work. And that's sort of the attitude I want to invite everybody to start experimenting and get your hands dirty and choose your first step or next step, and you decide if free or paid sits better with you. And I would like to get a closing from you, Connor. That's sort of what I wanted to say here.
Okay, perfect. That was very well put. And I think the closing, like what it comes down to, free or paid, it doesn't really matter. All that matters is that you're delivering results, you're engaging with people, and your system is working. So if it works, that's what matters. Both can work. Choose the one that's right for you. And if it's not working and you have free content, it doesn't mean paid is going to make it work. And if it's not working and it's paid, it doesn't mean free is going to make it work. It's probably your messaging is off. Maybe your offer's off. There's a million other factors, but it's not whether it's free or paid. So quit stressing. Go with the one that you like and go all in on it.
Well said. That's a perfect last line. Thank you so much for today. Thank you for watching.
Yep. Thank you for being here.